Hi, I am Juan, and you can be whoever you want to be. And I have my friend Mitchell here, so say hi. And what Mitchell and I are going to be talking about is stigma today. So why don't you go ahead and give us your definition of stigma, Mitchell?
Cool. So I guess stigma can be a range of different things, but mine relates directly to HIV stigma. Basically, whenever you're stigmatizing somebody, you could just be having prior thoughts about how something is, I guess. I do better by example. So like if you're stigmatizing somebody for HIV, you could think that, oh, if I give them a hug, I'm gonna get HIV, or if I like share the same sink as somebody, I could get HIV. It's kind of like stigmas, I guess that you could say.
Yeah, what I describe it as are like preconceived notions of someone's character based on a certain quality or something.
So much better than my explanation.
So why is stigma, specifically HIV stigma, such an important topic for you?
Little personal backstory. So I was diagnosed HIV positive in August of 2015, so I'm coming up on my 2-year mark, so that's kind of like a celebration of life for me as well. But I have had a lot of stigma in my life relating to HIV. I even lost a best friend over stigma with HIV.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Whenever I was diagnosed, I was living with a girl. I won't say names because, anonymity and all that good stuff. But I was living with a girl who I had known for almost 3 years, I think. And whenever I told her about my HIV status, like, she encouraged me to go get tested. And she knew about my status. She would just do little things like, oh, make sure that you're brushing your teeth in the kitchen sink, and make sure that you bleach after.
Ooh.
Yeah, bleach after you brush your teeth.
Wow, so just those tiny little things that really did affect you.
Yep.
I can imagine.
And I think at the time too, this is important to note, at the time I was totally cool. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, don't brush your teeth in the same sink as somebody because you have HIV. Your blood's gonna get around the area and they can get HIV. And that was my ignorance because I didn't know a lot about HIV. And obviously now I know that that's total bullshit. Excuse my French.
You're good.
Hopefully that doesn't have to be edited out, but yeah, like I just noticed that, like at the time I was thinking that because I didn't know about HIV that much, I thought that this makes sense, which isn't cool. Like, people shouldn't think that those are that's like false information. That's not cool for.
I think a large component of stigma is miseducation and people not really being aware of HIV, which we're talking about, like you said, getting HIV from brushing your teeth or whatever. Just those things that I guess to some people it makes sense, but at the same time it's like, wait, no, that's not actually what's happening here. And what I've realized with stigma all around is that people tend to have these microaggressions when it comes to stigma. Like, oh my god, you're HIV positive, let me just make an entire image of who you actually are as a person, which is not at all the case. Have you experienced that?
Of course, and thank you, good point, too, kind of directs my thoughts. So, yeah, like I think that people think that just because you're HIV positive, you're dirty. And I've made a point to correct people whenever I hear them say like, oh, that person's dirty or that person's clean because they do or don't have HIV or any other STI, sexually transmitted infection, in case you don't know.
Yeah. I think for someone to be positive, it's not a reflection of their character at all, really. And I want people to understand that, specifically about HIV, is that it's not that someone is dirty or clean as a person. And what I think would really make a difference is just queer culture, not even queer culture, just human culture when talking about STIs or whether you've gotten tested. The simple question of, oh, are you clean, implies that someone is dirty.
Exactly.
On the other end. And those conversations happen a lot, like dating apps, like Grindr, whatever. Just someone asks, are you clean? And they don't really think about it, but say someone who's positive or has had another STI gets asked that definitely has an impact on them.
Because it makes you feel dirty as a person. I mean, I know, before I was dating my boyfriend, I would be on apps and people would be like, are you clean? And I'm like, jokingly, I'd be like, oh yeah, I took a shower today, so I'm clean.
Yeah.
Just to make a joke out of it, because I don't want to be like a total, like, directing, like, asshole at them. I just try to, it's all about education. And I'll be like, well, I'm HIV positive, but I'm undetectable. It doesn't make me dirty. And I think that really kind of clicks with people, makes them think.
I agree. It's kind of just calling out their behavior as to what they're really saying about, or the reflection that they have on someone else. It's not fair to that person, and I think we're only really gonna see change if we actually boil down to the words that people use. And what I've noticed when it comes to stigma is that yes, there's stigma when it comes to straight people looking at queer people, but internally in the queer and gay community, stigma is still really, really prevalent.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it varies. Like, I mean, I've lived in, different cities since my diagnosis, and whenever I lived in Dallas, people are like, oh, make sure you don't tell anybody about your HIV status, and I was like, okay, like, I would.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
They just said that it was like not, like, people don't want to hear about that there. So kind of made me, but at the time, I was just freshly diagnosed, so I was like, oh, that makes sense. All these things now in hindsight, I'm like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. And then what about now that you're in Austin, and then you also work in the prevention field?
I do. Care program.
Care program, yeah.
Like a little plug.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely see a huge difference in Austin. I think that we all know in general Austin is like the outlier of Texas, and it's a great outlier. Austin in general, I think, is a lot more open-minded with HIV, and even like stigmas associated with it. There's definitely still work to be done, of course, anywhere you go. But overall, I think that Austin has been very open with my status, and even in the work that I do, like, I'm able to bring that education and help reduce stigmas around education.
Now, as someone who's positive and say someone who's nearly diagnosed that they might face some stigma, what's some advice or some words of encouragement that you could tell someone?
So whenever you're first diagnosed, I think that, like, for me, it was a lot of shame. Because I felt like, oh, it's my fault that this happened because I wasn't protecting myself. But, you shouldn't be ashamed of those things. I mean, everybody makes mistakes in their life, if you will. And if I didn't make this quote-unquote mistake, I don't really like to call it a mistake because it's brought me into what I love to do now. And I found a totally different passion in my life because of my HIV status that I might not have found before.
And I think that's one thing that people really need to hear more, is that, and it still shocks me that people still think HIV is a death sentence. Like, that to me still shocks me, and it's not. Like, you can live a perfectly quote-unquote normal, but just, you can still be a human.
Right.
And have HIV. Like, there's nothing stopping you.
Right, and it sounds so like, like we're talking about this like so casually, but people really do think that it's a death sentence, and they think like I said before, you're like, oh, I touched Juan and he's got HIV. Like, it's so silly that people think stuff like that.
Yeah. I've even seen it here in Austin.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because even though we are in Austin, we're still in Texas, and the education system in Texas is less than great, and like in high school, like I went to pretty good high school, so I was aware of HIV and had to have safe sex, and we actually talked about
That's awesome.
HIV in high school, but a lot of people don't.
Oh no. My hometown, no. Like I've probably told you this before, but I come from a small town in Florida, and I mean Florida is just as ass backwards as Texas is in a lot of ways. My high school, we did not talk about HIV at all that I remember, like at all. It was very abstinence-based programs, which is common for high schools and middle schools. But that was never a thing I knew about. I had to like educate myself around HIV, which I didn't know too much. I just knew about like the campaigns for HIV, like the Red campaign, and yeah, I think it's the One campaign. I knew about stuff like that because of my own education, and that's something that I was always passionate about. But in school, we definitely did not learn about HIV.
Another component of stigma is stigma in your family. So talk to me about stigma in your house or your household family.
So I was actually pretty lucky. I was very surprised. Whenever my mom found out, she was just very open and accepting, and there wasn't even a thought of like, I need to be careful about, like some people, like, they think they can't drink after the person or whatever, things like that. She didn't think anything of that. She was just like, how can I get my son care? Which is amazing. My dad, my dad's side of the family is the one that's from the small town in Florida, so there's a lot of, stigma associated with HIV there especially. But my dad even was just very open to learning. He Googled a bunch of stuff and talked to people about HIV and educated himself, and luckily I have not had to face any stigma in my family.
Which you are really fortunate.
So lucky. Like overall my, if you will, HIV coming out experience was very easy. Like anybody else, I did have issues along the way, but definitely not as many as some people I know. Like, I wasn't shunned by my family, thank God.
Which is great. I hear many stories where they're just horror stories, really, of people, one, coming out as queer, gay, or whatever you identify as, but then adding HIV to that, it can be a lot for someone. But like you said, it's just like your dad, he went out and really educated himself and wanted to learn about the topic, which that would make me incredibly proud as a son to have my dad do that. But I wish more families would do that. But again, every family's different. But.
Exactly, and I never thought that my dad would even come to terms with it. Like, I was so scared to even tell him. I had to send him this long email. It's like 5-6 paragraphs or something like that about, you know, how I felt like I got to my HIV status, and, you know, about being undetectable and being healthy. And he just, at first he was very shocked and he was very upset, but it wasn't like he was like, oh, you're nasty or anything like that. He was just really upset because he was hurt, because he thought I was gonna die.
Gotcha.
So I guess that was kind of a sort of a preconceived notion. He thought that it was still a death sentence. So, but through education, he definitely educated himself and saw that I can live a long, healthy life.
Well, I think that's a good point to end things on, is that it's really just about educating yourself. Stigma, at its core, it's just misinformation that you've heard throughout your life, that really just wanting to make that effort of really knowing what HIV really is. And there are many resources out there for people to really get information on.
Yeah,
for sure. So.
Especially in Austin. I mean, y'all, there's CARE where I work. We offer free HIV testing. There's ASA, AIDS Services of Austin. The city does testing.
The Q.
So many
which
places.
I work at.
Yes. So many places. So, like, get tested, know your status, and educate yourself. If you don't know something, we have Google for a reason. Make sure you're getting it from credible sources. I can't stress that enough. Don't, look at some .com site. Those aren't always the best. Like, make sure you really know your sources, but educate yourself. It's so important.
Yes, I agree. And if anyone ever needs information or just someone to talk to, I'm always here. You're welcome to reach out to me, and we can definitely point you in the right direction to resources. Yep. Yay.
Thank you, Juan.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll give you a
having me.
Of course. Well, that is it for Mitchell and I, so make sure to hit subscribe right up here or down here, I always forget, but whatever. And then like, share, and comment, and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Go.